Okay. 3, 2. Hello, sports fans and followers of sports-kings.com. You are now watching the live podcast of This Week in Sports, where we go all around the sports world, and we're giving you whatever news we find that's hot today. My name's Joe, as always. You can follow us at sports-kings.com. You can find our website right there. Our Twitter handle is @RealSportsKings. And with me today, I've got a couple of gentlemen that I've grown to be very familiar with through all these podcasts. So it should be a good time. They might say Jadeveon Clowney is the pride of the Carolinas, but we've got Mike Prosser with us, and he's a real swell dude. So, Mike,
Thank
how
you.
you doing
Hey,
today?
wait a minute. You're not Andy. What? No, I'm just kidding. No, shout out to our boy Andy Flint, who couldn't be with us today. He's on the proverbial grind, making that fat cash. So, shout out to you, Andy. I know your pain.
It's a tough struggle out there, but we all got to make an honest dollar somehow. And from the wonderful town of Bath, we've got Kelvin with us today, joining the This Week in Sports crew, stepping up for our fallen comrade. How's it going, man?
It's going. Andy, I'll try and do you proud.
Kelvin's a Cowboys fan, as we can see by his hat, but we'll let that one slide to the wayside. We're gonna hop right into this because I know Michael's itching at the bite to talk about this. Kind of forgot what I wanted to say there. Los Angeles Lakers are looking for a new head coach. The team was not willing to pick up Mike D'Antoni's option for the 2015-16 season, and that didn't make him very happy. So he resigned, and now the Lakers are back on the market for a new head coach. And surely there will be no shortage of suitors. They're one of the top franchises in the entire NBA historically, and still today they have a great superstar like Kobe Bryant, a whole lot of cash open in the salary cap to make some moves. So, Michael, let's start it off with you. Let's see what you got, and maybe just give us who you think is the best candidate for the job.
Well, first of all, I never thought that Mike D'Antoni was smart by any sense, but this is probably the smartest thing he's ever done, was to be a greedy bastard. So, thank you, Mike D'Antoni, for causing us anguish no more. Now, we put the past behind us. We move on. Why not? And I'm just spitballing here because I know they've thrown out John Calipari, despite the fact that he said that he will not be a Lakers coach. He's going to stay in Kentucky. I don't know. You've got Kevin Ollie's name out there. That could be interesting. I've heard Tom Thibodeau about him trying to be lured away from Chicago. Personally, I don't know if that's going to be the case. He's kind of, he's kind of put his stamp on that franchise right now. Why not pull George Karl out of ESPN and have him come back and coach this team? Especially if you're going to try to go after with all that money and going to go make a push for Carmelo Anthony. I mean, Carmelo's older. He's a little bit wiser. George Karl's older. I mean, you can't get any much older than he already was, but he is. Reunited, and it feels so good, man. Just bring him back. At least, for a couple years. You've got some piece, okay, maybe a couple pieces. Aside from Kobe, maybe Powell comes back, I don't know. You've got Swaggy P. I don't think you can build a whole team around Swaggy P, but that is a fun guy to watch. And why not see if George Karl wants to come back and coach? As of right now, anybody. I could go in and coach the Lakers right now, and I'd be better than Mike D'Antoni. Defensively, I don't know about offense. That guy had some good offense, but defensively, I mean, how do you score 140 points and lose? I never understood that part, but I was just so ecstatic. I was knocking books off my bookshelf. I was jumping up and down so much, but let's just hope that old Mitch Kupchak decides with this head coach that this is going to be the right coach, because as reports have said, they can't whiff again. Like, they can't screw this up for a second time.
Yeah, the Lakers have a lot of a blank slate here too. I think the only players they have under contract for next year are the fossils, really, of Kobe Bryant and Steve Nash, and then the most energetic bench player of all time, Robert Sacre. I mean, if you guys have ever checked out the YouTube videos of him doing his little karate thing on the bench, when he starts going crazy,
That was a great.
man, he's
I really hated that trade because I always liked Matt Barnes, but getting Robert from I think it was Golden State or something. I thought
Yep.
that was a cool. He surprised me, and there was a lot of names like that they were playing contract players. They were playing for contracts like a Swaggy P. Nick Young, like a Robert Sucre. Bring them back, man. It brings the energy back to the Staples Center. Something that this other team that plays there has kind of stole from us. No offense, Joe.
Yeah, and Kelvin, what do you?
Don't think they stole.
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. Kelvin, what do you think about this, man? Because that's the selling point of a blank slate to a new coach is really huge. So, what direction do you think they could go in? I mean, the Lakers could really go anyway.
If they want to bring in a already experienced coach, which most likely is gonna happen, and they do lure Tom Thibodeau away from Chicago, it's not gonna help them in the postseason. Look at what he's a regular season coach. He cannot adjust to a postseason roster. So I don't like Tom Thibodeau coming in. If Melo bolts for LA like is rumored to be right now, he just had a meeting with the minds with Steve Kerr and Phil Jackson 2 days ago, I believe it was, and he didn't seem too happy with the direction of bringing Steve Kerr on as a head coach, not having any coaching experience. So to go to LA and play with Kobe for 2 years, and then that team's basically going to be Carmelo's if he goes. I would look to bring in like a Billy Donovan from Florida State, from Florida Gators for their head coach. He's got the experience in college. He's won national championships. Joakim Noah has played for him. He's highly regarded as one of the greater minds in basketball. But the thing with that is he did opt out of his contract in Orlando after 2 days after signing it in Orlando. So I'd be worried about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of different ways that the Lakers could go. I think a couple other guys that could come into play that haven't been mentioned by either of you guys are Byron Scott, who's another guy that hasn't been coaching since he was with the Cavaliers, but he's got ties to Lakerland, so that could be an option they take a long look at. I like the idea of Tom Thibodeau coming, but like Mike said, I think he's established a good thing in Chicago. And Chicago could make their own run for Carmelo Anthony as well if he was to leave New York. I think Chicago really needs that scorer on the wing. And other than that, if they could get Derrick Rose back at even some level compared to the stardom that he used to have, then they could be a pretty dangerous team. I like the George Karl idea too that Mike threw out there. He headbutts with a lot of players, and I kind of question how he would mesh with Kobe Bryant. The Van Gundy brothers, too, I think, are someone else you could throw out there. Jeff and Stan both have been out of the league for a little while here. I believe Stan's last gig was with Orlando, and that didn't end so well with the Dwight Howard drama. But definitely, those are two smart guys that they've had success in the NBA, and given a clean slate and a couple more years of Kobe Bryant, I think they could both be pretty successful there. But suffice to say, the Lakers have a pretty clean slate in terms of money and in terms of philosophy. They definitely need a change to get away from this 27-win season and get back to winning basketball, not football. Wrong sport here. We'll stop basketball things so I don't forget what sport we're talking about, and we'll talk a little bit about Donald Sterling, but not too much because basically every angle you've heard from some news outlet over the last few days. If you live under a rock and you haven't heard at all about what's going on with Donald Sterling, TMZ acquired some tapes of Sterling making some very racist comments. His girlfriend posted an Instagram picture, and he was very against her associating with African American people. So he has been banned for life by Adam Silver. He has been fined $2.5 million. And to probably unanimously vote him out of ownership of the Clippers and transfer that away. So I just want to get your guys' takes real quick on, what you think the punishment should have been for Sterling if it was any different, and what your take is on Silver with his really his first big decision as commissioner after taking over from David Stern. We'll start with Kelvin on this one.
I think that Adam Silver's decision wasn't made final until about an hour before his press conference because he found out from the Golden State Warriors that if the punishment wasn't severe enough and he wasn't somehow going to be out of the league, they were going to basically protest and wait for the tip-off and then just walk off the court in L.A. that night and not play a game and forfeit. And that was what was going to happen around the league until something severe happened to Donald Sterling, and he came out and said he's banning him for life and fining him the maximum 2.5, and that is what the players wanted. They wanted him gone, and now it's up to the owners to kick him out of the league while force him to sell the team. And the 10-team committee yesterday of owners voted unanimously to start the process to force him to sell the team. But let's not forget, Donald Sterling's a lawyer. So he's going to fight this thing no matter what because he doesn't want to sell the team, and he's going to be forced to, and it's going to be lower, and it's just going to drag out. This isn't going to go away anytime soon. So you guys will be talking about this for months to come if this is how it goes. But I was on the War Room Sports channel yesterday with those guys talking about this because that's all they talked about yesterday. And my opinion for them was to let the sponsorship fall out and make him lose his revenue there, let the players boycott the season next year, and force him to sell it that way. That way the league doesn't have to spend millions and millions in lawyer fees to get this guy to force to sell a team.
Yeah, Michael, will swing this over to you because, there's certainly an aspect of something had to be done, or else the Clippers-Warriors series was going to turn pretty dramatic after their pretty mellow Game 4 protest of taking off their team shooting shirts. What do you think is the next step here for the Clippers as an organization to try to move past this?
Well, I mean, everybody just has to just move on. It's happened. It's over. Stop beating a dead horse about it. It's going to be dragged out, like Kelvin said, and we get that. When you're trying to force somebody to do something that they're 50% opposed against, especially since it's something that I don't want to say he built this franchise back to where, it should be, but, I mean, let's not forget a few, 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit older, these guys were picking this guy named Michael Olowokandi with the #1 overall pick. You see how well he turned out, but I think the sad thing about the whole thing is, I don't know if the guy's racist or not. He made a mistake. It was a very bad human error. I don't condone anything that he said one bit. I thought it was a horrible thing to say, especially since his girlfriend's half black. But at the same time, now there's reports this guy's got cancer. I mean, as if it couldn't get any worse for this guy. That really sucks. I mean, I saw a lot of Facebook posts about this whole thing. Donald Sterling should die and burn in the eternal flames of hell. Donald Sterling is a piece of shit this. Donald Sterling needs to die that. Now this guy's got cancer. How does this, make people does anybody feel like an asshole for saying that this guy should die and burn in hell? I mean, I kind of feel bad for the guy that he's got cancer. I don't feel bad for what he said, but I kind of feel bad that the guy's got cancer. So, I mean,
yeah.
It's bad. The whole thing is bad.
No, the thing with the cancer thing, he's had it for a couple of years now. He was supposed to have already died, supposedly, according to his doctors.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing situation, and
so this guy's the crypt keeper then. Oh, okay, cool.
And another thing is, I don't know if you guys know about this. How much you guys have really read up into it because it's all over the news, so you don't really have to read into it. The only reason that these were recorded is because his memory's going, and he told his girlfriend and his wife to record their conversation, so if they wanted to argue about something later and he didn't remember it, they had it there.
No. Backfire.
That's why this is all recorded.
You know what? That's interesting if that's true, because the one thing, I mean, I'm no lawyer by any means, but the one thing I read is that in California law, it's illegal to record someone against their will. And, whether I'm interpreting that correctly or not, if that's true, then that was probably going to be one of the major sticking points if Donald Sterling did decide to take this to court of, you know, invalidating evidence, really, and, clearing his name. I think, obviously,
so many
obviously, I
motion
think,
to suppress the tapes for things coming out. This is going to be like a Law and Order season, man. I mean, this is like 20
It's gonna
episodes of
be
Law and
forever.
Order in this one thing right here.
And supposedly
to
his
close
girlfriend.
this out, because we'll. What were we going on?
Oh, supposedly this girlfriend has Donald Sterling's wife also talking like this way after she's come out and said she has no beliefs like that whatsoever. So I'd be looking to see those here shortly. When she runs out of her 500K she supposedly got from TMZ to get this.
This whole thing's a really sticky situation, but we're gonna, move on from this. And I just want to say, obviously there's no place for any sort of behavior like this in the NBA. And really props to Adam Silver for, acknowledging that and showing that he really cares about both the players, the owners, the fans, everybody involved in the game of basketball, because this was pretty unanimous. People wanted this to happen. So shout out to Adam Silver. Good start in your term as NBA commissioner. Next topic that we've got is actually kind of interesting because it ties into NBA as well. But we've got a college player that decided to stay for his senior year at Wisconsin, saying that he likes college basketball better than anything the NBA has to offer. I'm talking about Frank Kaminsky, forward from Wisconsin, who helped them to the Final Four this year, was a huge part of their run. He told ESPN, "I am at the pinnacle of my basketball playing career, at least in my eyes. I know the NBA has their crazy fans and all, but if you look at all of their games, there are games when teams like the Bobcats get hardly any fans, and it looks flat out boring." This is from a blog post, he said. So, he's pretty clear that, he doesn't want to be playing for a team that's, lackluster if he's going to give up his time at college and, playing for 4 years, finishing his degree, and, just having a good time at Wisconsin. So we'll start this one with Michael. What do you think about NBA versus college basketball? Which do you think is more exciting?
Well, I mean, I've said this before on many other shows. I'll say it again. I'm really only a 50% basketball fan, despite the fact that I'm on Kings Court every Wednesday, right here on Sports Kings YouTube. Check it out. I say some outlandish things. Quick plug. But I don't know. I made a comment about this on the last show. These playoffs that's been going on right now make me want to watch the NBA more. I'm a Lakers fan, so the only time I'm watching an NBA game is if the Lakers are on. But these playoffs that are going on right now make me want to watch the NBA more. Like, I wanted to watch last night's Indiana-Atlanta game just to see if Indiana was going to get their ass kicked. They ended up kicking ass. Completely blows my mind because they were supposed to be, out in 4, but Atlanta ends up taking them to a Game 7. But that's a whole other topic. Aside from, college, when it comes to college basketball, I really only get excited for March Madness. I mean, every once in a while you'll have that staple game of like a Kentucky, Indiana, of like a historic program. But if a lot of these guys are only going to be there for 1 year and then bolt, I might as well watch the NBA. Wait a year and watch the NBA. Or watch the NBA and see what I missed when these guys were in college. I mean, Frank, I get what you're saying. But were you even really going to be drafted anyway? With all these underclassmen that are coming out, and you being a senior, you shoot the ball well, I assume, because you go to Wisconsin, you have to shoot the ball well. Late second round pick, maybe.
Yeah,
I can see what you're saying, but
he's a little bit stronger than that. I think he's a 7-foot forward with a lot of range to shoot around the floor. A lot of mock drafts that I saw had him, very tail end of the first round, early second round, so pretty comfortable he'd get drafted. But he's a guy with leadership value too. If you're at a big program like that, senior leadership, and I think that'll even come into play. Maybe he can crack in the next year.
Well,
So
let's
Kelvin will
hope
swing
I
this
kind of
over
hope
to
he
you.
proves me wrong. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he gets drafted.
Definitely. Kelvin will swing this over to you. What do you think between the NBA and college basketball? Which would you rather watch on it?
Well, personally, I watch the NBA over college. Besides when the ACC is playing the ACC and beating each other up, because that's the best conference in basketball, in my opinion, for
Amen.
college. When being a Carolina fan, when
Sorry to
Duke
hear
and
that.
Carolina play, go at it. It's pretty intense, especially in my house when everybody else is a Duke fan. But yeah, it's more exciting in college because they only play a 36-game schedule, 32, and then you get the tournament if you make it. You're playing like 36 to 40 games a year. In the NBA, you're playing 82, and your arena's usually 4,000 seats more in a professional arena than a college arena. So where he says that the Charlotte Bobcats are empty, they were actually a pretty decent team this year. If you guys didn't watch, they had a winning record.
And
So
went to the playoffs.
they went
Yeah.
to the playoffs. They're
Got
owned
swept by the
by.
Heat, but they did pretty well. Yeah.
They did decent. Well, I don't think they would have been swept if Jefferson's foot didn't give out in like the first 5 minutes of game one.
That's true.
But I just think that the reason he thinks that is because they play a 40 game schedule, and they play 2 games a week compared to 3 or 4. Most nights in the NBA, you have 3 or 4 games a week, sometimes 2 like they do in college. But the fans, he's never experienced an NBA type crowd in the postseason. When you get to the postseason, that's where your crowd comes out, and they get you energized. And when it's a playoff type game in the NBA, like San Antonio, Miami, that's a playoff atmosphere in the regular season. So to say that the college fans are better than NBA fans and the NBA is worse than college, it's not. In my opinion, it's not. It's the talent that's coming out one year and done in college is what's making the NBA boring to him, I bet.
Yeah, I think certainly if the college basketball was able to implement a 2-year rule or something like that to keep guys around, I think it would certainly be a lot more exciting.
And that
But
is
I
on the
think,
table.
oh yeah, certainly they're working on that. But I think the biggest thing is that when you're in college, you have a whole campus behind you, and in a lot of instances, a whole city behind you, or even like Syracuse, a team like that, you've got the whole region of upstate New York behind you. I think, with the NBA, you can get a pretty scattered fan base. Maybe your city roots for your team, maybe they root for a better team. Maybe you get people from a lot of outside regions rooting for you. But when you're in college, like Kaminsky said, you have a whole campus of 15, 16,000 plus rooting for you every single night for a 40-game season. And that's a pretty special thing, I think. I think you see a lot more in college football. At those big programs, you go to Michigan at the Big House, you got 100,000 people. There's few environments, if any, in sports quite like that. But certainly, I give Kaminsky props for staying in college all 4 years and, finishing his degree and enjoying college basketball while he's got it. Because as we saw a lot of in this college basketball tournament, the NCAA's this past year, teams with the senior leadership, guys that have been together for longer periods of time, were beating the one-and-done teams all over the place. You saw Duke fall.
Kentucky.
Yeah, except for Kentucky.
Made it to the finals, so you can't really say much about that.
Yeah, Kentucky had a couple guys that were, second years that people thought were going to be one-and-dones, and they ended up staying. And now the Harrison twins stayed at Kentucky.
Congratulations,
as well, so.
Harrison twins. Thank you for staying.
So maybe Calipari's, starting to convince some guys to stick around and say, hey, look at Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. It's taken him a couple of years to get going on the NBA level. Avoid the scrutiny, stay here, and get better while you're in college, and have a hell of a lot of fun while you're doing it.
Look at Davis.
Anthony Davis, yeah, another guy. I mean,
just had a breakout season for New Orleans.
Yeah, that's the other side of it. That's the other side of this. Requiring guys to stay in college. Like, obviously, if they're really good prospects, they don't want to hurt that by staying in college. But at the same time, a lot of these guys that leave as one and dones, it seems like they take at least 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4 in the NBA, to really reach their full height. Imagine if they did all that development in college and then they went right into the NBA as stars. I mean, they're guys that, like Kevin Durant, they just walk into the NBA and, they're putting up 20 points a game, whatever. John Wall, I think, is a good example of that. I think John Wall's a guy that's really taken a lot of time to really come into his own. He's had a lot of struggles in his first 3 years, but this season he really propped the Washington Wizards up and really helped them in their, along with Bradley Beal, in their first round series against the Bulls. So maybe
now we just gotta wait till Otto Porter Jr. shows up.
another guy. I think Otto Porter was at Georgetown for 2 years, I want to say.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So he's another guy that could come in there too. But props to the Wizards for being the Bulls without Derrick Rose and with, half a lineup really.
Still had the defensive
NBA
player of
teams,
the year.
So we'll wrap this up here. We're getting towards the end of our show. We're going to swing it over to a little bit of football. We've had a lot of basketball so far. NFL draft is coming up. I know for a lot of people, including myself, we're sick of seeing mock drafts. We just want to see the real one already. NFL draft starts next Thursday, May 8th at, I believe, 8 p.m.
Yep.
Maybe
8
7.
p.m.
Someone
Mark
correct
your
me. 8
calendars,
p.m.
people. 8 p.m.
8
I'm
p.m.
marking my calendar for this first round because it's going to be really exciting, and there's a lot of things that could happen really from the first pick. Texans general manager has come out and said that they have an idea of who they're taking with the first pick, whether it's Jadeveon Clowney, whether it's Blake Bortles, whether it's Johnny Manziel. Obviously, nobody's going to come out and say. But he was pretty clear in saying if they stay at 1, they have their guy. So is there a chance that the Houston Texans trade out of the first-round pick in a draft like this? Kelvin, we'll start with you. I mean, what do you think Texans should do at the top of the draft?
If they do trade this first overall pick, like people are saying is possible, they're at least going to pick 2 more times in the first round after that, because they're not going to drop down to like 10, they're not going to drop out of the top 7 to trade down into this draft. They're going to stay within the top 7 if they trade down, and then they're going to get another pick after that in at least the second round to give them, I think it'd be like 3 picks in the second round is what they would have, because they're not going to trade a first rounder for a first rounder and a prospect player. So I don't see them trading out of the first pick just because of the rebuild that they need for that team is pretty significant after losing Matt Schaub and you don't have a quarterback. As much as I want to see Manziel go to Houston, just because I don't want him in Dallas, like is rumored to be happening, I think they're taking Jadeveon Clowney, number 1, because their GM wasn't sold on Khalil Mack, and I don't know why, because Khalil Mack just seems like he's in beast mode right now. Maybe it's because he's from the University of Buffalo and they don't have much talent, I guess. But I think Texans stay with it and they take Clowney number 1, Manziel falls to 4 or 8.
Yeah, I would tend to agree here, but let's see what Michael has to say, because I think the Texans certainly need a quarterback, but Jadeveon Clowney is certainly hard to pass up on. So do you think the Texans move down? Maybe they grab their quarterback at the top of the draft and pick up some later picks? What do you think happens here, Mike?
No, I do think it is very possible that they trade out of this. Go back 20 years ago to the day that will live in infamy when Mel Kiper fought Bill Tobin on live television. The Cincinnati Bengals took this guy named Dan Wilkins. Big Daddy Wilkins. He had a 12-year NFL career. He was a solid guy. Consensus number 1 overall pick. A lot of people question his motor. Kind of like Jadeveon Clowney. It's one of those things where Houston needs a quarterback. Bill O'Brien is an offensive mind. Bill O'Brien taught Tom Brady how to he was Tom Brady's offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach when Josh McDaniels left and went to go play with Tim Tebow. Then he goes to Penn State and he gets the number 1 quarterback prospect in the country in Christian Hackenberg to come to Penn State. Teaches him how to be a quarterback. Does well. Hackenberg did well for that team that was around him. A lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores. and then he bolts back for the NFL. Well, he's going to want a quarterback that he can teach himself. T.J. Yates isn't the guy. Despite the fact that what T.J. Yates did in that playoff, or in the last couple games to get Houston to the playoffs a couple years ago when Matt Schaub went out, he's not the guy. Case Keenum never was the guy. The guy hadn't played under center in probably 5 or 6 years. He's not the guy. They need a guy. Are you going to be able to get one at 33? Maybe look at a guy like a Tom Savage or Jimmy Garoppolo, but they're going to be good, not great. At one point in time, I had Blake Bortles going number 1, but in the official mock draft that DC Sports Kings is going to be releasing today, that's www.sports-kings.com/DC Sports Kings, Johnny Manziel is going to Texas, and I'll tell you why. Because they've already got a defense. They've got J.J. Watt. The defense was tired last year because Matt Schaub kept throwing interceptions. You need a quarterback. Manziel can be that guy. Manziel's enigmatic, yes, but he can throw to a DeAndre Hopkins, who's got speed. He can throw to an Andre Johnson, who's still got speed, despite the fact that he's, 30-something. If they trade out, though, Cleveland's got an extra one. If Cleveland wants to move up and grab, Manziel instead of waiting at 4 for Sammy Watkins, which has, probably been the only consensus pick that I've seen in every single mock draft that either I've done or that everybody else has done, and he's got a possibility to go 2 to St. Louis if they don't take Greg Robinson. This is probably the most enigmatic top 10 I've seen in quite some time, and I can't wait.
Yeah, there's certainly a top crop of positional prospects between Clowney, Mack, Robinson, and Watkins. And I think...
And even Jake Matthews.
Yeah, even Jake Matthews, too.
A lot of people are saying St. Louis would rather have Jake Matthews than Greg Robinson. I don't know why, but hey.
Yeah, Robinson's kind of the, more physical specimen, whereas Jake Matthews is more
guy.
Yeah, more proficiently sound. And the other thing to remember too is that when St. Louis had the second pick a number of years ago, they took a guy named Jason Smith from Baylor, who was kind of a fast riser like Robinson, and then totally busted out, and now I think he's a backup right tackle for the Jets. So I think this is a draft not totally unlike last year, where there's a lot of positional prospects, but not one guy that you can 100% say he's going to be a stud. And honestly, I don't feel that way about Jadeveon Clowney either.
Mm-mm.
As Michael said, with Dan Wilkinson. What?
Dan Wilkinson, yeah, Big Daddy Wilkinson.
Big Danny Wilkinson. I've gone on record on this show before saying that Mack was going to get drafted before Clowney. I still believe Mack is going to have the better NFL career than Clowney. And I think the Texans will be smart to learn from when the Chiefs sat at 1 and selected Eric Fisher last year. And Fisher didn't have such a great year. And now with Brandon Albert in Miami, Fisher is going to be pushed into the left tackle position. Maybe he picks it up, but he certainly had some adjustment issues. And even though the Chiefs are being a great team because they finally have a real quarterback like Alex Smith, they certainly could have done a lot better with that number 1 overall pick. I think if the Texans could get an offer like what the Redskins got for RG3, they've, Rams have had an extra first-round pick for 3 straight years now.
What was it?
I certainly don't think
2-2s and a few.
It was 3 1s and either 3 1s, 2 2s. I'm pretty sure is what it was.
Yeah, and I think a third was in there somewhere.
Redskins don't have a draft pick in this one, do they?
Not in the first. They have to wait till like 40.
So.
No, 34th.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, 34th the Redskins got from the Rams. So I
don't pay attention to this stuff. I pay attention to like all the mock drafts, but I don't pay attention to who has picks and whatnot. Because I was going to throw out there, what if Washington threw in their first rounder, but then I just remember they traded like 3 first rounders to get RG3 2 years ago. I was going to say, what if they threw in like a first rounder for Kirk Cousins to go to Houston? That way they get the first overall pick and then give Houston like 2 more picks in like the second round. But not they don't have one.
There's no way the Texans would pass up the first overall pick and then go with Kirk Cousins as their starting quarterback. No. I think, as Mike mentioned too, there's certainly a good second crop of. Oh, we just lost Mike there. But there's certainly a good second crop of quarterbacks that seem to be popping up between Jimmy Garoppolo and Tom Savage and Zach Mettenberger. You could even throw in there. So there's certainly options for the Texans to go quarterback. If they get a king's ransom, maybe from Atlanta wanting to trade up for Jadeveon Clowney.
Atlanta does want to trade up.
Atlanta would certainly love to land Jadeveon Clowney. They really need a pass rusher. So I think that could happen. But ultimately, I think we're going to see the Texans stay. They're going to take Clowney. They know that they need, top-end talent wherever they can get it. And certainly a pass rusher after losing Connor and Mario Williams in recent years. They could use an influx of pass rushers, whether Clowney plays inside on the line or outside linebacker standing up or kind of play that Mario Williams kind of role.
Just imagine
they certainly need it.
Just imagine it with J.J. Swat on one side, Clowney on the other.
And Clowney on the other.
If that worked out the way they think it could, that's going to be a nasty defensive line with a pass rush and swatting ability. That's just going to be nasty.
And then as Michael said, they could certainly go for a second-tier quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, those kind of guys.
Bridgewater.
TJ Yates, Case Keenum. Teddy Bridgewater could fall too, yeah.
He could be in the second round. He's
Dawson.
projected to be an early second-round pick.
Here's my only concern. Jadeveon Clowney didn't play Greg Robinson. Jadeveon Clowney didn't play Jake Matthews. If I'm not mistaken, in the 2 years that that he was at South Carolina, he hasn't really had the ability to go up against a formidable left tackle like he's going to see in the NFL. Is he going to be able to get past some of these veterans who know all the tricks, who know everything there is to know about, the outside edge rusher of a 3-4 or a 4-3, who's going to be able to anchor? Is he going to be able to forklift his way to a quarterback? I mean, yeah, the guy's fast. He's talented. We get that. But, is he going to be able to do that day in, day out, 4 downs? That concerns me because he never had, a guy like, some of these left tackles that you're going to see to play against in college. I mean, there was no, real, pro-ready prospect. I think he played, Taylor Lewan once. And it was only for, a few snaps.
Yeah, in that Michigan game, the one where the legendary hit heard around the world of Clowney knocking that running back.
Smith.
Yeah.
And Vincent Smith still got up. Which is, props to Vincent Smith for getting up, man. Because, a lot of people probably would have just been, staring there going, all right, Truman, drop the bomb. Nothing happened,
Yeah, ultimately, we're going to wrap this up here. I think the Texans are going to stick at 1. They're going to take Clowney. They're going to take the top talent they can. I think the quarterbacks, in terms of where they're going to go in this draft, are being a lot overrated. Like last year when we saw E.J. Manuel be the only quarterback on in the first round, I think a lot of guys could slide. I think teams are going to fall in love with the positional talent, and they're going to say, I don't know about a couple of these quarterbacks. So, maybe Derek Carr falls back into the second round. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater falls back into the second round. I think there will still be at least 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round. But if I were setting an over-under, I'd probably put it at 2.5, to be honest with you, if I'm, betting on how many quarterbacks go in the first round. And ultimately, when it comes to it in the end, I don't think the Houston Texans are going to be taking a quarterback. I think they're going to be taking Jadeveon Clowney. So, any final thoughts here, guys, before we wrap up? We're going all around the sports world, so feel free to leave some shout-outs before we take off this week.
If you're into baseball, go check out the Diamond Kings inaugural show. It was posted yesterday. Just getting that out there. I don't know, Mike, you still here?
Yeah, that was great stuff. It's got to be good with Kelvin and I in it. And if Joe would have been in there, it would have been the greatest show on the planet. But no, yeah, seriously, go check it out. We did the inaugural show dropped last night. I kind of said Gio Gonzalez was getting hit more times than Ray Rice's wife. So that was funny. Even on the other show, I'll say outlandish things, guys. I'm going to keep you guys watching. You just wait. But yeah, check it out. That's going to be a good one. Be with us in about an hour, not even an hour, man. Maybe about 20 minutes. Come back to us, man. We're gonna talk some puck. And trust me, we got a lot to talk about. So
man.
stay with us, guys. Stay with us, folks.
You stole my thunder. If you guys threw me on a baseball podcast, I think that'd go down the drain pretty quickly. But we're coming right back at you. We got a hockey podcast, Kings of the Rink, episode 4 up, I believe. You know, we're going to talk some puck. It's playoffs. It's a real good time. Stick with us. Thank you guys for checking out This Week in Sports. For Michael and Kelvin, I'm signing off. I'm Joe. Shout out to Andy Flint. Hopefully we'll have you back next week. Oh, Captain, my Captain. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.